Hello and welcome to this month's edition of What's Cooking Rutland. I'm Bethany, a nutritionist at the Vermont Department of Health and part of the Rutland Nutrition Coalition that brings you this show each month. And I think it is safe to say for April, happy spring. That was definitely a mistake in the March show to say happy spring because March was anything but spring. But hopefully now that we're coming into April, fingers and toes all crossed, it really is. So this is, I know that I often say I have my favorite guests and my favorite shows, but this is totally my all-time favorite show of the year. And this is our Freezer Challenge show. So the annual, right up there on the screen, how awesome is that? Our annual Freezer Challenge show where we worked hard in the fall and the summer, fall to put all of the bounty from our gardens into our freezers. And as we're coming into April, it's about time to empty those babies. So it's time to take a look at what's there and really skip the grocery shopping as much as you can and cook from what's in your freezer and your cupboard. So I need to have Grace Davy with me for this. So come on into the camera, Grace. Grace is our everyday chef queen, still doing everyday chef work, but
Yes.
now associated with
NeighborWorks.
NeighborWorks. Oh, thank
Western
you.
Vermont.
Thank you. Great. Awesome. I always see like this long title, and so I knew it was good. But NeighborWorks, if I just say NeighborWorks, that works.
Everyone will know. Yeah.
Fabulous. Great. Awesome. So Grace, we did this show last year together along with Mary Bilecki, who was here as a gleaning coordinator. And we had an awful lot of fun. And we're going to kind of revisit some of those same themes. I'm just remembering our conversations around tomatoes.
Lots of tomatoes.
Lots of tomatoes. And there are still lots of tomatoes in my freezer again this year. So we are going to play with tomatoes. You brought lots of tomatoes. And then we're going to play with some of the fruit that was in my freezer. I think you said you still have lots of fruit in yours as
Yeah, but I didn't bring any.
You didn't bring any. So what's in your freezer? So when we started doing this show and the freezer challenge, and I don't remember how many years ago at this point, we started out originally by taking an inventory of what was in our freezer. And yeah, definitely raised eyes on that one because holy cow, there was a lot in my freezer to work on. And I will readily confess that I still have some of my Thanksgiving turkey in my freezer. So it's waiting to be turned into soup and it hasn't happened yet. So that's on the agenda to do. But today, thinking about what came out of the garden are tomatoes. So Grace and I approach freezing tomatoes a little differently. Right?
Yeah, but they're all summertime delicious.
But they all are summertime delicious. Exactly. So I'm just going to show you. So these tomatoes, we're going to do a little Italian sauce soup. I need to have this in front of me so I can pronounce it potentially correctly. It's from some of my visits to Italy, pici, which is a Tuscan kind of pasta. We're not making the pasta, we're just going to do the sauce, but this would otherwise be called pici al aglione, and my Italian friends can correct me if I totally screwed that up. So that's what these tomatoes are going to be turned into, and my tomatoes were just simply washed, patted dry, cored, so you can see the core is gone, and then thrown into this gallon Ziploc bag and into the freezer. Super simple. As these babies thaw, and they're not fully thawed right now, so I'm going to be running back and forth with some warm water to warm my fingers, the skins are going to slide right off. So you'll get to see some of that action once they've really thawed, because right now they're not thawed enough, so it's a little bit more effort. That is the Bethany super shortcut way. Grace gives her tomatoes a little bit more love in the fall. So what do you have going on over there for tomatoes?
So I like to do 3 different kinds of tomatoes. This is a cherry tomato puree. It's some Sun Gold cherry tomatoes, which are like my favorite of all the cherry tomatoes. So what I do is I just put them in a pot with a little bit of water until they pop. And then I take a sieve, like a fine-grained colander, and just kind of push the tomatoes through there, and it gathers all the seeds and skins. And then this stuff, I just cool it down and bag it, and then freeze it on baking sheets like that, and then I can just stack them really easily in my freezer. And then the skins I like to put in the dehydrator, and then just food process them into like a powder. And then I keep that in the freezer, and it's like a nice little sprinkle. Mix it with salt or like whatever.
And then there's like for me, what I would call the heavy lifting of tomatoes, but probably so totally worth it.
Oh yeah.
You have to work on converting me, Grace.
Yeah, I mean, especially if I have some that look pretty bad on spots, it's good for like spot cleaning. I'll just take a bunch of tomatoes, skins on, I don't do anything, and then I just cut them into, core them out, cut them into chunks, put them on a baking sheet, 375, olive oil, salt, and pepper, half an hour, 40 minutes, cool them down, and then just throw them in a bag. And then same thing, I put them on a baking sheet and freeze them flat, and it's probably like 4 cups of tomatoes right here. And then I do Juliette's, which are those really nice paste ones. And then when they freeze, they don't get soupy like these at all. So I have all these really nice like big chunks of roasted tomatoes, which I save for like pasta sauce when I want like a thicker kind of.
And when we were kind of setting up and organizing in the kitchen, the one thing that we shared, and you can see, this skin just peels right off when it's thawed. This other part is like still kind of rock-like, so I need to thaw these a little bit more. I didn't take them out of the freezer soon enough. But yeah, I'm just going to work on peeling off these skins. But there's just magic about working with these tomatoes. The recipe that I have for the sauce, which I also use as a base for tomato soup, calls for tomato pulp. And that's what this is really going to be once it's truly thawed. And it's going to taste just like summer. So, don't even bother to, if you have the ability to freeze your tomatoes, do that. Because there is just nothing like it. This tastes just like summer compared to what comes out of a can.
This is just a space saver too, because you can keep them flat like that. And
right, and mine definitely takes up a lot more real estate in the freezer when I'm doing this. So I'm going to play with getting the skins off of these tomatoes so that I can turn them into this really yummy sauce/tomato soup. And you can see it just, because it's not fully thawed, I can just break it apart and it's going to be this pulp, and I'm just going to throw it right into the pot as I go. But I'm going to turn it over to Grace because you're doing a curry.
Yes.
So say more and start playing while I continue to duke out frozen tomatoes here.
Okay. So this curry, I am going to use the 2 kinds of tomatoes I brought. I also brought some roasted jalapenos that I had. These I'll either grill them or roast them. I think these are roasted. Baking sheet, olive oil, salt and pepper, 375. It's like a delicious caramelized, and they freeze really well. And they, I seeded them so they're not too spicy. So I'll throw one of those in. Just gonna saute some onion in coconut oil, and I'm gonna throw in some mustard seeds to toast a little bit too. And is this good enough? Probably like a tablespoon of coconut oil, or a good glug.
I know, that's one of your favorite words when you're in the kitchen, the glug of something. I'm like, what's a glug?
Eyeball it.
The sign of somebody who really knows how to cook. Unlike me, who's like tied to recipes. So I think you have ginger that's going into that recipe as well, right?
Yeah.
And so do you have any tricks? And I know others have tried to teach me some tricks around getting the skin off of ginger, because for me, I think that's the barrier, is that I just have such a hard time with all those little knobs getting the skin off. So any pearls of wisdom?
Yeah, what I do is I just take these little nubs off and I don't process those. And then when it's like a smooth kind of, I'll just kind of go through and skin it like that.
Okay.
And just peel it. So that's just how I like to do it. And it goes pretty quickly. And then, just like each side flat. And if it doesn't feel flat enough to you, you can kind of like cut a little edge off to keep it like a flat, steady surface. So you don't cook with onions a lot?
I do, but I just don't. I'm horrible at peeling them. I cry something fierce, and it's pretty bad. So for me to get through an onion, I have a really hard time. And even glasses, I'll actually go and change my glasses. Seriously, it's kind of sort of ugly. So I usually let other folks on this show cut onions, because otherwise, we would seriously have to take a long break for me to recover from onions. It's crazy, 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 crazy. So I got my tomatoes. I'm so excited. I moved them into a bowl because I'm going to chop some garlic and saute some garlic here at this alongside gray sauteing onions. We're just going to fill the space with lots of really wonderful smells.
Mm-hmm.
Did you put garlic in yours, or how much?
Not yet. I'm going to hold off and add the ginger and the garlic together. I'm just going to do the onions, then add the mustard seeds, a little bit of curry and tomato paste just to kind of stick to the to the onions.
Yep.
And then just kind of caramelize with them. And I'm going to put in some grated. I like to do, because I feel like garlic cooks pretty quick, so I like to do that later, like the last step kind of.
Yep. And this is going to go in quickly. And, we can take a peek at this garlic. Grace and I were both talking, this is the end of the season really for garlic that's been wintered over. So I don't know if you can see, there is some not such pretty spots on these two cloves of garlic, but the rest of the clove, it really is fine. I mean, it's starting to actually sprout a little bit, but I'm just going to cut off a couple of these bad spots, and the rest is going to be fine. It's okay. If the whole thing were like mush, then it's a totally different story. And it's that time of year. It's getting to there are different folks who have written about that last garlic clove, how you just treasure that last garlic clove before you then have to wait for the next season, because it takes a little while. So these are okay, even if they don't look perfect. They do actually peel really easy because they're a little drier than usual.
That's true.
That's super fast. I'm not having to smash them to get the skins off.
There's nothing better, though, than fresh, sticky garlic fingers.
I know. But this is not sticky garlic finger time of year. That comes at a different time of year.
So I just decided to grate this carrot instead of chop it because I kind of wanted to stew and disappear, since I'm going to be adding a lot of jalapeno. And I wasn't sure how you felt about spice too, so carrots are sweet.
Yes, they do, and they will offset some of that, which is a really nice option.
I picked up a couple different kinds of mustard seeds from the co-op.
All right, so say more. I'm going to totally plead my ignorance. What do you mean a couple different kinds of mustard seeds? Isn't mustard seed mustard seed?
Well, there's yellow seeds and there's brown seeds.
Okay. So the reason is that the difference between yellow and brown mustard? You think I'm a foodie, and clearly I'm asking these crazy questions. Is that truly? Do you know?
One is stronger. I feel like the yellow is more potent than the brown, and you would think it would be the other way because one's darker.
Right.
And there's a price difference too. The yellow is more expensive.
Huh.
But yeah, I just like to kind of mix it up. I just feel like adding two different kinds is more exciting than
yeah, definitely. I love it.
Mustard seeds are one of those things where that flavor really pops, and adds a nice strong.
All right, so I'm going to duke out your onions over there with a little bit of garlic over here. So I'm just going to add a little olive oil to this pan. Sorry, Donna, I'm not measuring. But this is going to be just this big pot of soup kind of thing.
And do you have salt by any chance?
I do. It's just regular old ordinary, nothing fancy.
I just tomatoed myself.
Better you than me.
Yeah. But it is a studio apron.
There we go. I'll under it, guys, promise. So I'm going to toss in this garlic. Let it simmer for a few minutes. Oh, I love it. We've got both pots on the screen there. Very fun.
Making a crazy. So I'm not measuring either, but in terms of tomato paste, it's kind of like you want to taste it out. But tomato paste, even though we're doing a tomato curry and we have tons of tomatoes, tomato paste is one of those thick, dense things that can hold its own while it's being sauteed straight instead of stewed. And I just really like it.
That actually looks really beautiful. I mean, the seeds in there, so the different shapes.
Yeah, it smells good.
And so this garlic, we're just going to saute it until it just gets to be a little bit of color. We don't want to overdo it. And I've kept it pretty chunky. So this really, what do you like for garlic? So it could be that it gets crushed and just put into there crushed, or minced really finely, or these are some slightly bigger pieces. And so it's starting to brown, so I'm going to go ahead and add my tomatoes back in without splattering myself. Yay, team. And then as these tomatoes thaw, they're just going to let go of their juices, and I'm just going to mash them so that it becomes really more pulp-like. So even though it looks like this big bowl of tomatoes, this big pot of these big chunks of tomatoes, it actually is going to cook down really nicely. So right now it's just like these big chunks, but trust me, it's going to turn into something beautiful in terms of sauce.
Oh, they do look nice. Doesn't
it? I know. I love the color. And this, if you noticed, in the bag was just a whole variety of different tomatoes, so it was a real nice mixture. So we're going to let that go for a bit, and then I'm going to chop up a little chili pepper. So mine is not from the freezer, so yours are, from the freezer. I went and purchased because I didn't freeze any of these, so that I'm just filing that away for next year.
You should try it. Yeah,
yeah.
This is like all I have left too. I've been really cruising through my tomatoes and jalapenos this year. It's been such a long winter, I feel like.
It has.
I need lots of tomatoes and
really a tough winter, so definitely need that. And so as, Grace had talked about, I'm going to take out these little seeds so that it's not too spicy. And as we've often talked about with other folks when we've been playing with jalapenos, I'm going to be sure to really wash my hands before I do anything else, lest I end up with jalapeno juices in my eyes on top of onions. That'd be a real mess, huh?
I'll never be invited back.
No, somebody will have to drive me home.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So just chop this up a little bit. So I love that idea, the carrots in there to kind of cut some of the spice. And sometimes when people are making tomato sauces, if not soups, they'll add carrot to cut some of the acid of the tomatoes, and that becomes another nice alternative.
Yes, yeah. Carrots and tomatoes are so good together.
It's a great combination. All right, so I love this. Okay, so yeah, these are starting to really break down. So if these tomatoes were thawed when they went in here, this would be ready in really 10 minutes. We all really be just set. It's just a matter of everything, the pulp and such all mixing together. It's going to take a few more minutes than that because we have some frozen tomatoes. So hopefully we'll get it to what it would look like when it's done before we finish up the show. But I'm going to put this aside, and while Grace is adding more of her ingredients, we've got a crazy easy crisp that we're going to put together, but I'm going to let you stay put. So you're working with ginger, and you really need to be looking at Grace's knife skills versus my knife skills because it's at a whole other level. This is a woman who knows how to use a knife. Look at that. Beautiful skills. Oh my goodness.
Very, very much the everyday chef, right?
Yeah, exactly. We need to, come and do some everyday chef kind of lessons here because I could use a little bit of that practice. I mean, I try, but I don't even come.
As long as you're comfortable, though, really. Like I'll always do a number 4 when I'm cutting, just to keep my thumb out of the way.
Say that again. All right, ready? We're getting our first lesson here. Okay, so say that again. So you do a what?
If I'm just kind of running my knife through to make it, let me turn this down a little bit.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
We get sidetracked.
Like to run, I'll just kind of hold my thumb up just to kind of keep it so I'm not holding the knife really.
Okay.
Because I don't need to hold any of the stuff that I'm cutting, and that will just kind of just rock through it.
Got it. So the number 4. All right, this number 4. We won't go where I was thinking in terms of 4.
I kind of want to.
Yoga brain. I was thinking figure 4. So I'm like, how does that work?
Sorry, I'm like going toward you with a knife.
Sorry, yes, and I know, and I'm laughing. So
yoga knife.
Yeah. I know. Not a good thing. Oh my goodness gracious. So sauce is coming along. We're going to come back to this and take a peek. But this is looking really good.
It is looking delicious.
So the tomatoes are breaking down really, really nicely. And, you know, depending on if you want to have a thicker sauce, you could keep some larger chunks in here. Or if you really need it to be mushy or a more smooth sauce, I think like Grace's beautiful roasted tomatoes. And oh, look at that, just magic going in there. Those sun golds, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is going to go, and oh, good golly, 5 minutes. We can get a crisp put together and yours finished in 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to show what the thawed jalapeno looks like too. It kind of looks like one of those pickled jalapenos that you have. Like when you chop it up, it's going to be a little slippery, so it really helps to kind of run through it and not like try and hold it in place as you're chopping it. I bet this would also be a good soup, you know, if you threw in some cream or coconut milk with it.
Ooh, that would be really yummy. That sounds great. So we have an Italian and a Middle Eastern, Indian kind of thing going on over here.
Yeah.
So
Or British.
Or right, exactly, or British, could be one or the other. So yeah, so this is coming along nicely. So with the frozen fruit, I'm going to dive right into that. So this crisp is really pretty easy to do. And when you're doing a fresh fruit crisp or a fruit crisp, it really can be anything. So the recipe that I chose calls it a peach crisp, but I didn't have enough peaches in my freezer. It's really calling for like 5-ish cups of sliced fruit. So be big, but I didn't bring in a huge pan. And I think my bags only had like 2 cups in them.
Oh, those look nice.
Don't they look nice? Yum. As well as a couple of cups of blueberries. And I think, you know, if we take a peek at these, you know, Grace and I were talking about, so again, Bethany's super shortcut when it comes to freezing fruit, like crazy. So these peaches, all I did was wash them, pat them dry, cut them, and put them in this freezer bag, and didn't do a thing else. You know, the skins are still on because when it goes into a crisp, there's so much other stuff happening in a crisp, like who cares whether there's skins there? It shouldn't bother anybody. And when you're making a crisp at this point, you don't want this fruit to be thawed, so it's like, wait a second. But because it's broken into chunks or in chunks, it's really easy to then break apart in this bowl. So I'm going to pass this over to you to break apart.
Yeah.
Blueberries are often best. I know, yes. Maybe. Blueberries are often best, same thing, rinsed, pat dry, and then on a cookie sheet. Is that what you do with yours?
I put wax paper down.
Wax paper so that then they freeze individually, in which case then they come out separately. These have thawed just a little bit in transport as opposed to frozen. But you don't have this big one solid block of blueberries like I did with the peaches. So we're just going to toss
dry.
those
You can
in.
just roll like a towel over top of them.
Right, exactly.
It's not like you hold each one and
no,
polish it.
oh my gosh, yes.
Okay,
No. Right, it is. It's usually on, after I rinse them, I usually line my cookie sheet with a couple of layers of paper towels and just roll them around and maybe on top, and then, you know, like magic, the tablecloth, pull the paper towel out, and, you know, it's nice dry on the surface. It makes it really easy. So this would be great. This is a good 4 cups of fruit. If you had a big pan or needed more fruit here, you could also add anything else that you have. I brought an apple, but I don't think we need it. I think that this is going to be fine. And so, Grace, this needs, what does this need? It needs a little bit of, it needs like 1/3 of a cup of sugar to be, when you're done, tossed on top. And I'll give you the flour once I'm done with it. So 1/4 of a cup of flour. I am shaking up this flour because I mixed flour for both sides of the recipe, the topping as well as the crisp. And I did my usual thing. There's 1/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour, 1/4 of a cup of whole wheat flour, and 1/4 of a cup of white wheat flour in here. I need a half, you need a 1/4. Ta-da! We're gonna meet in the middle. So I'm just gonna go ahead and throw 1/2 a cup. And the nice thing, you know, a recipe may say leveled, but when you're working with something like a crisp, it's not crazy food science, so you really don't have to worry too much about measuring. So the rest of that is going to be yours. Some brown sugar, so about 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar are going to go in here. Some cinnamon. A little bit of salt. Let me go
Wait, some of these are real stubborn.
Yes, they are, but they'll
Is
get
that going
there.
to matter if they
No.
well they
No, they're once they're in there,
they'll break down together.
they're gonna break down and fall apart and be just fine. And we're just gonna whisk this together.
You're whisking like the wind.
What's that?
You're whisking like the wind.
I am. Da, 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 da. And then
All right, that's broken up.
fabulous. And then add a little butter, which I threw
Oh yeah, keep
back
it in
into the fridge.
freezer?
I kept it in the fridge, but the freezer would make sense because you really want it to be cold on top. So we're going to cut in some butter. And then you could actually pop this through a food processor if you wanted to, or you can use the 2-knife method, or I brought my pastry blender. That is all. We're going to spray this pan, 9-inch pan. It could be a square pan, a round pan, an 8-inch pan, whatever pan you want, with a little cooking spray. The fruit's going to go in there. And then I am just going to cut in the butter. Once the butter has been cut in, so it looks like little crumbs, we're going to toss in some oatmeal, and then that's going to go right on top.
All right, so this is ready to go in?
It is.
And then what about all the extra flour that's in it? Just kind
I
of,
usually just sprinkle it on top, just
Okay.
kind of roll it around. And that flour is just going to help to, as the juices come out of that fruit, as it both thaws and bakes, the flour is going to act as a thickener so that you don't have something that's too runny. So that's the purpose of flour there. Now, when you do a crisp, you were talking about adding usually a little lemon or some sort of zestiness to it. So what do you do?
I usually add, a little bit of lemon. If it's fresh, I always zest it just because it's like, why not? Use the zest. And I just feel like fruit, I like that like kind of citrus pop to it. And I'm a big lemon person anyway. So.
And lemons together with peaches and blueberries, complete magic.
Yes.
So yummy. So in goes my cup of flour. We're just going to toss this together.
These are looking delicious.
It is looking delicious. This is going to get poured on top, and then I'm just going to kind of move to spread this topping around.
Looks pretty.
Doesn't it? Looks really great. And then this needs to bake for a while. So it would normally bake for about 45 minutes or so. And true confessions, it smells fabulous. This was done ahead of time, so when you see it, there's going to be a chunk of it missing because we had to do a little quality control at home. So this, is a day or so old, so it's not quite as light and lifted as it is, but it smells amazing. So it's the same thing. It's the after with the same ingredients, peaches, blueberries, but this one does have an apple because I didn't have quite as many blueberries in this one. So we have this wonderful crisp. With this crisp, I brought some maple Greek yogurt that you could use as a dollop on top, or make your own whipped cream. I'm going to put that in front so it's next to the before and after. And we've got this beautiful soup that's happening here that I'm going to ladle into a bowl. And this curry,
Yeah,
I'll let you lift the lid. Oh, it looks great. So if you still have any of these ingredients left in your freezer, you have a lot of great ideas to actually get things out of your freezer to make room for, rhubarb is going to be here before you know it. I know, seems hard to believe, but it will be before you know it. And so you need to make some room in that freezer, give your freezer a break. So we've got the WIC code up there as we close up the show. If you're a family on WIC or know someone who is, point them to the show, whether it's on television or online, and you'll keep your food benefits going. So thanks, everybody. Legitimately happy spring.
Yay.
Really and truly. If we're doing a freezer challenge, it has to be spring. Have fun with tomatoes. We are about to dive into some peach crisp, and it's totally enjoy that. But we'll put some bowls out so everybody can see these things. Thanks all. Happy spring. See you next month. Ooh, yum. Need to ladle this into a bowl. Nice. So fun.